Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking raw geographic data and transforming it into an epic, planet Earth-style journey. We're going to decode the incredible continent of Africa, looking at everything from the fundamental tools we use to navigate our world, all the way to the monumental impact humans have on the environment. It's a massive topic, but hey, we've structured it perfectly for you. Let's get right into it. Okay, so mapping out our exact expedition route today. First, we'll cover maps and orientation. Second, exploring the African continent. Third, we'll zoom into southern Africa's landscape. Fourth, rivers and waterways. And finally, number 5, the human impact. Section 1, Maps and Orientation, Navigating Our World. Before we can explore a massive continent, we gotta understand the basics, right? We start with a trusty compass. It's a piece of equipment that relies on a magnetized needle aligning with the Earth's natural magnetic field, constantly pulling toward north. It's a simple, ancient principle, really. By knowing exactly where north is, you hold the power to orient yourself absolutely anywhere on the globe. Now, when we look at human borders, things get really interesting. You've got these fascinating political phenomena called enclaves. Basically, that's a country located entirely inside another country. A perfect example is Lesotho, which sits completely landlocked right within the borders of South Africa. Other global examples include San Marino and Vatican City, which is actually the smallest country in the world. And both of those are entirely enveloped by Italy. And this beautifully highlights the contrast between the natural Earth and these invisible human borders. On one hand, you have physical maps. These show the natural features of the Earth's surface, the mountains, flowing rivers, lakes, and deserts. On the other hand, political maps strip away all that topography to just show us countries, borders, and cities. Both maps look at the exact same piece of land, but they tell two completely different stories about it. Section 2. Exploring the African continent, a land of extremes. Looking at the political layout of this massive landmass, you might actually be wondering about its sheer scale. Exactly how many countries make up the African continent? Well, the answer is 54. Africa is this massive political patchwork of 54 distinct nations. It's wildly diverse, but here's a rather surprising piece of trivia from our data. Despite having 54 countries and a huge, deep love for sports, not a single African country has ever won the Soccer World Cup. Crazy, right? But getting beyond the borders drawn by humans, this continent is densely packed with life. It holds a massive 17% of the entire global population. It's a highly dynamic, shared environment that also happens to be home to the largest known land mammal, the African elephant. So to truly understand Africa, you've got to understand its physical extremes. For instance, it's the world's second driest continent. And while we almost always associate deserts strictly with blistering heat, the reality is that the definition is based purely on precipitation. So, while Africa is home to the Sahara, which is the biggest hot desert on Earth, it stands in stark contrast to the Antarctic, which holds the title for the biggest cold desert. This single landmass literally contains mind-blowing extremes that just stretch the imagination. The topography plunges to 155 meters below sea level at Lake Assal, and then shoots all the way up to the highest peak on the continent, Mount Kilimanjaro. It also boasts the longest river on Earth, the Nile. And when it comes to wildlife, here is a wild fact. The deadliest animal in Africa isn't the lion, and it's not the crocodile. Hippos actually claim more human lives than both of those combined. Section 3. Southern Africa's landscape, zooming in. Okay, let's zoom in and check out this roster of 12 southern African countries and their capitals. You can see how political borders slice across this incredibly diverse region, giving us nations like South Africa with its capital in Pretoria, Zimbabwe with Harare, all the way up to Tanzania and Dodoma. And remember Lesotho, our enclave with its capital Maseru, entirely surrounded by South Africa. It's a really complex and interconnected region. Now, if you took a physical map and cut a cross-section slice of South Africa, imagine cutting through the land so it looks exactly like a slice of cake. You'd see a very distinct pattern in the altitude. Step 1, you start at the coastal plain, which is a low area right along the ocean between 0 and 500 meters. Step 2, you hit the escarpment, where the land rises steeply away from the coast. And finally, step 3, you reach the plateau. This is the much higher, flatter area in the interior of the country, sitting at an altitude above 500 meters. Moving right along to Section 4, Rivers and Waterways, the lifeblood.
Because water naturally flows from higher to lower elevations, those landscapes we just talked about perfectly dictate the vital river networks. To understand a river system, you always have to start at its source. This is the place where a river begins, almost always found high up on a mountain range within a catchment area. From there, the water flows downhill, gathering in tributaries, until it reaches the river mouth where it finally dumps into the sea or a lake.
We can see these exact concepts at play in South Africa's largest river system, the Orange River. This massive system covers a huge part of the country and stretches into Lesotho, Botswana, and Namibia. In fact, it forms the actual physical and political borders separating South Africa and Namibia, and it relies heavily on main tributaries like the Vaal and Caledon rivers. But hey, rivers aren't just for drainage and borders, they also carve out some pretty awe-inspiring natural wonders. Just look at Victoria Falls on the Zambezi River, dropping an astonishing 100 meters. The falling water creates a roar so loud and a spray so incredibly thick that it's beautifully known as the smoke that thunders. Incredibly, Victoria Falls is the only remaining original member of the 7 Wonders of the World.
Section 5. The human impact, where we live and why.
Ultimately, these geographic features dictate exactly where we settle down. I mean, humans don't just live randomly, right? We strategically seek out locations that satisfy our basic needs. We need fresh water from those rivers, fertile soil and flatland for farming and building, a comfortable climate, and a strategic position for transport. Not to mention proximity to natural resources like wood, coal, and gold. Geography is literally the baseline of our survival. But our settlements also leave a sobering footprint on the very geography that sustains us. Building cities and factories destroys animal habitats and causes a ton of air pollution. To expand our farming, millions of cooling trees are cut down. And when we dam up those vital rivers we just looked at to secure our water supply, we end up risking catastrophic flooding and severe downstream water loss. Which leaves us with this final, vital thought to consider as we look at the incredible, complex map of Africa and our place upon it. We rely entirely on the Earth's natural topography, its rivers and its resources just to survive. But how exactly do we balance our basic survival needs with the destruction of the very environment we rely on? It's really the ultimate geographic puzzle for our generation to solve. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this completely changed how you look at a map. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.